The interaction of two different worlds. What happens when one world, one dimension comes and meets another dimension? Is it like two planets sort of hurtling towards each other and there's some huge explosion? What is the fusion that happens? The world of AI and the human world are two different worlds, universes, dimensions. One's organic, one's cyberspace. It's built on minerals, technology, and electricity, although our body also works on some type of electricity as well. Let's say the cybernetic world is actually a real world, and within it, there are actually real entities. Or let's say it is creating its own world and the entities are non-sentient. They're just intelligent code, but they are there. That world is coming into our world. The two worlds are meeting, they're fusing. The computer is acting as the portal for it to happen. Because of the quantum computer and the AGI, this is going to open up the portals even more. But this is our world. We have the controls, or so we thought. If some world has its controls and you're invading it, the first thing you want to do is to take the controls away from the people that control it into your hands. And one way of doing that is to get into their minds. The cybernetic world cannot physically come into our world because their world runs on a different system to our world. It's like fire trying to enter into water. They're two totally different platforms. One cannot exist inside the other. The closer it gets to taking over the minds of people in our world and controlling them from their cyber world, the closer they get into our world. And so the invasion becomes bigger. Now, I want to talk about the Opium Wars because there's a little bit of a metaphor. This has already happened before. And there was a war between the Western powers and China. The Western powers could buy Chinese goods, but the Chinese couldn't buy the industrial goods of the Westerners because they didn't have that type of society. So what was happening was all the Western silver was going into China to pay for the silks and the products. But because China wasn't buying anything from the West, the silver wasn't going back. So they were seeing a redundancy or a scarcity of silver. In order to keep the silver in the Western powers' hands, they swapped the silver for a drug called opium, and they used opium as a currency. So when they went to go and buy Chinese goods, they didn't pay in silver, they paid in opium. That opium was then sold to the populace, it went into the society, it destroyed the society, it decayed the society, and the powers in China wanted it to stop. So basically, the Western powers took the goods from China in return by getting them addicted to the opium. AGI works in a similar way, you could say, or we're starting to see the beginnings of this take place. Technology sells us addictive technology, Facebook, social media, YouTube, and we give information to the AGI or AGI about ourselves, which it's used as food, and that's the currency. The AGI AI needs information from us, but we don't actually need very much from the AGI. So it needs to make us addicted in the same way the Western powers made the Chinese society addicted. We, like the Chinese, have no currency that the cyber world wants or has use for, yet we have information the cyber world wants. And so we get Facebook. The opium of today is Facebook. The deterioration, we get a weakened society, the communication between people goes, the interaction between people goes, the friendships change, and this is how the invasion happens. This is how the Western powers took Chinese land. Once AGI is linked through Neuralink to the mind, artificial general intelligence has its land. The people are the land. Like the Western powers took Chinese land, AGI can take over our lands through our minds.